Hey, buddy.
Hello, hello, hello. Coming to you from the kitchen of the Bailey McGuire house.
The kitchen. Coming to
Well,
you live from the kitchen.
it's
If
a
you go
festive.
like all like Swedish chef on me, I'm gonna have
That'd be John. Yeah, I'm not. So
start flinging things and
we got to try to figure out the whole what's happening in the room in there. It just so
I
we'll
think
have to
maybe
see.
you have to cleanse your equipment because every time you seem to have a problem with your internet.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Um,
God knows, been all over the world, I think. But
I know. Hi, Robin.
speaking of all over the world,
What?
ladies and
Are we
gentlemen,
going on a trip?
holy my goodness. Folks, we have a guest of guest on this show. I know we've had a lot of guests. I love the guests we've had. I truly mean that. But when the opportunity came to reach out to this person and say, "Man, I'd love to have you on the show," and he responded, "Okay," I was like, "Woohoo!" Because let me tell you, folks, if you saw the advertisements, this man has been involved in lots and lots of paranormal shows, and to get to be where you're basically a subject matter expert that they go in and they, after the actual episode, they're actually asking him, so what could this be? That takes a lot of years to get there. So listen, I tell you what, I'm excited. We always have our amazing people that are tuning in already. Wes, Robin, Bob, and others will to come and hang out with us. But folks, tonight, Fred Richards is in the house. Listen, tonight is a show. Call your family, call your friends, send up some flares, get the
I'd also
balloon
like to
going.
say hello to my dad. My dad's watching. He just texted me, but he doesn't know how to operate the chat.
Okay.
So hi, Dad.
So I'm putting it out there. I'm putting it out there because it's gonna rock. This I'm still like, wow, it's so cool to get to have him on the show. So many things he's done, so many things that he's still got in the works, things that are happening currently. Folks, I hope you're sitting down because, ladies and gentlemen, from all around the paranormal, tonight, myself and Kelly of Talking Tech Paranormal bring to you the one, the only Christopher Allen Brewer.
Woo! Hi, everyone. That was the best introduction ever. Thank you so much, Keith.
Right? Well, he's pretty good at that. He's pretty good at that.
We love you. You're just I'm really excited to be on the show. Folks, here he is. You're seeing him. It is the man, Mr. Christopher Allen Brewer. So my goodness. Yeah, West goes the man himself. Well, yeah, he's here, folks. So without further ado, man, tell us let's start right in with yourself, where you got into the paranormal and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I was born in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. I'm Oglala Sioux. So our tribe, as many native tribes, have a more intimate relationship with spirit. We're all exposed to that concept of a spirit world from a very early age. So for us, things like paranormal, supernatural, those are all part of just coexisting with a number of different life forms, most of which we don't even see. And those life forms extend into like cryptids, star people, interdimensional beings. So, we talked when we were kids about having maybe imaginary friends, it's something our parents took really seriously because they want to know if these are different spirits coming into our tribe. But that's kind of like where it started for me. We were moved. My uncle was a reservation cop, and he saw all kinds of things, from cryptids to spirits to star people. And those were like some of the first ghost stories I heard. He was the first to respond to like fatal accidents. So he would tell me about seeing these people off the side of the road. And in like South Dakota, there's a number of places where there were battles and massacres. There's so much history out there and so much blood in the soil. So I used to ask him, well, how do you know these people aren't just hitchhiking or, because you weren't really supposed to pursue spirits. You know, if they had a message for you, that was okay. But otherwise, interaction with that realm could be dangerous. So, you know, he'd say when he got closer to these people, he'd notice that they were luminescent or they were transparent. That's how he knew that they were spirits. But,
Wow.
you know, most of the spirits that come to us are in our dream time. And for us, that's just a place where we get a lot of our visions, our clues as to the different spiritual paths that are opening up to us. And we believe that the world of the spirit and the astral, that dream world, lie very close together. So it's really easy for spirits to impart messages to us on that astral plane. And that's why, you know, if you see a spirit, a dead person coming to you in a dream, that's an actual visitation. It's not just, you know, something we downloaded from the day. But yeah, the first house we moved to after we moved off the reservation was an old turn of the century house in downtown Denver. And for some reason, my mom put me in the same room where a woman, a previous tenant, had hung herself in the closet. And my father worked a night shift. So it was just my mom and I in the evenings by herself.
Wow.
And there were so many nights where you could hear her crying from this closet. And the closet didn't even have a door. It was like this really heavy, like curtain fabric. And sometimes my mom said, I don't remember this, but you could see her feet swinging from under the carpet, you know, that curtain. And there was one time where there was this, the cellar was opened up, which was usually closed because it was dangerous, but just this very heavy cellar door. And I heard a woman down there, and I went to investigate because I thought it was my mom. And something slammed the cellar door down on my hand, which ripped my finger apart. So we moved like right after that. But that kind of symbolically branded me with the interest in spirits, you know, how some remain and how some stay mad or stay sad. You know, we with our relationship with the spirit of my tribe, it was, you know, we believe that, you know, ancestors, there's no such thing as death. There's no word for goodbye in Sioux, because nothing ever dies. So, you know, a lot of times if we saw activity happening in our house, you know, in our households, it was our ancestors. But there were other spirits that I would encounter later that were malevolent or mean or just sad. So that's kind of where I started. It was just part of my DNA.
Wow. Yeah. What a beautiful story when you think about of how it was so family oriented. It was, they brought you into, they tried to explain that this is kind of how it is. And
yeah.
And now from that, and that's very, I'm still like, God, it's just, I just love, I'm very, very much in love with the fact of the Native Americans and so forth. I would say, what do you think as if maybe it's a bit of a gift that maybe you have from that kind of blessing from them to you, to now that they've blessed you or something to kind of go forward and do what you do in this world here now?
Well, I think that real gift happened probably not till 1991, and that was the year I graduated from high school. And I was having a real hard time just trying to graduate on time. I had a job, I was in sports, I was in relationships. So, and I hadn't yet had that kind of coming of age experience, which in our tribe was the Indian naming ceremony. So at the same time, my grandfather starts having these impressions that one of his eagle feathers wants to leave his possession. So he asks it where it wants to go. And that night he has, during his dream time, he has a vision of the feather rotating above this lake near his house.
Wow.
And he looks down and he sees bear tracks. So he follows them to the edge of the water. And when he gets there, he looks inside and he sees my reflection smiling back at him. So that's how he knew that eagle feather was going to me. And then he named me Matochante, which is Sioux for bear heart, and gave me a dream journal. And because now that was, you're establishing a deeper relationship with the creator, with God, with all of divinity. Right. So ever since then, I've kept a dream journal. But that first dream I had that evening was just a very impactful dream where it was obvious that some form of the divine was really trying to communicate with me. So the series of dreams I had after that was what really prepared me for this path, working with spirits, again, because my cousin, it was kind of taboo to be like a ghost hunter. If you had like a medicine man or like a healer in your lineage and you hung out in places where there was like a lot of dead energy, you could absorb that, which could be toxic for you, but also you could pass it on to someone else. and then kind of like infect the tribe with kind of like bad medicine. So you really had to be careful if you were in areas. You really had to know about how to cleanse yourself, and cleanse your spirit, and not just like a saging, or it had to be your thought forms, like your views, because all of this kind of bad medicine could really influence the choices you made on your spiritual path.
Wow, woo! You hit some things right on the dime on this one, when you talk about that negativity that's out there, and how being around it, and then you absorb it, and then it's that really thick, mucky feeling you get when you walk in a room, maybe after two people have just started arguing, and then you're like, what happened? And then you just get out of there. And sadly, honestly, we tend to see a lot of that in our very field, which is horrible, because honestly, what we're doing this for, or should be doing it for, as you well know, is really trying to help people by educating, by showing them ways that you're investigating has real, documented the best evidence, and then be like you are. I mean, you've got so many years of that knowledge and experience that you pass on, and it's people like yourself that we want to just sit back and just listen to you and learn from. But you hit it right on the head with that. So speaking of, I wanted to kind of get into some of the programs that you, in fact, have been a part of, and if maybe with the different ones, kind of what they're like, or maybe just how some of the things went, or some of the interesting ones that you can speak on, because I know a lot of people are like, wow, he's been on a lot of shows, so how does that go? So maybe we'll go down that little happy journey now.
Sure. Yeah, one of the first ones was My Ghost Story, and that was really fun because they flew us out to LA. So we were interviewed in this and that was like a biography channel, bio production, and then it was sold to like Lifetime Movie Network. But it was I met a gentleman, James Manda, who's my kind of partner in crime in my paranormal investigation group, which is Future Ghost. And at the time, he was living in a house near a park where a passenger plane crashed in 1991, which killed everyone on board. It was a 737. So I knew a psychic. I've worked in a metaphysical store for like the past 15 years. And I knew one of the psychics that lived down there. And she was saying when she used to jog at night, she could feel people like running by her, like just this confusion. And someone really needed to go out there and bless that space. So that's how I met this guy. We went out to the park. We had some experiences. We had like a spirit that followed back that I saw later on that evening. So that story, I did a podcast about it. And that story ended up on the desk of a producer in LA, which was My Ghost Story. But that one was kind of funny because we flew out there and they offer you alcohol to kind of like loosen your tongue, right? Which I didn't participate because I had a cocktail on the plane on the way down there. I was so nervous. And I didn't think of the altitude. So I was just I was such a zombie when we finally landed. But I guess the people that went before us got so intoxicated they couldn't even film them. So yeah. But that was just a really memorable one. It was like our first one. It was where we were just kind of getting our foot in the door. After that, we were chosen out of all the investigators in Colorado by the Denver Post to film a special interview that was done by two-time Pulitzer Prize winner Craig Walker. So that was like a huge honor. And that's where it kind of started for us. After that, we did, I think, like Most Terrifying Places in America. We did Scariest Night of My Life, Paranormal 911. Paranormal Night Shift, Haunted Hospitals. So Haunted Hospitals was the last one I did. Season 4 I filmed like last February. So that should premiere later on, this year, hopefully maybe in the fall time. So we'll see. A lot of
maybe they get a season 5.
I really hope so. It's just, a lot of these things were shut down during this pandemic. So
well, I've talked to them. I ended up having a story that happened, and it's actually on Indian land in East Texas. So,
oh wow,
that's why. Yeah. So, well, we got a very cool question. You know the man we all know and love, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Wes Coleman. I just want to say I know a lot of people in the paranormal, and even though I have never met Chris in person, I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. He is the real deal, and sometimes you can just feel how genuine a person and Chris is definitely that guy.
Mhm.
His book, Selfies from the Underworld, is a no-brainer, folks, to buy from Amazon. Very interesting and a great read.
Mhm.
I don't doubt it one bit. I don't doubt it one bit. I mean, come on, this guy's got stories. I mean, if you've been doing it as long as he has, and then where he's done it, I mean, come on. That's why I told people. I said, I'm telling you, I'm just putting the word out there.
Mhm.
This is one of the coolest people we're going to have on the show in a very long time because of just by the magnitude of what you've done. So that was a very cool story. With some of the other shows, so there are a lot of people out there, some listening and some out there that I have asked me. So when it comes to these shows and kind of being picked, I mean, and I get asked this, what are some of the things when they really, out of say 40 something people that put stuff in, it's probably more than that. I mean, what are really the ones that they go, okay, wow, that's something. What would you think those kind of type of of possibilities would be for a person as far as certain ones that really stand out?
Yeah.
If you were even the one who was like, wow, this is something, and then so forth.
Mhm. I'm given like a series of 13 or more case files when I do these shows. So these are all true stories. People actually have had these experiences. It ends up being a little different once they add in like sound effects and all the dramatizations and all these things, but they're still based in truth. But for me, it's just, with the background I have, it's just the really most like simple ones where it is a spirit really trying to make authentic contact with another human being. I think it was maybe Paranormal 911. I did my piece on this one story was a woman who had died in a motorcycle accident. And so the EMT that responded to the scene of this accident, she saw this bloodied woman approach her, and she told her, "Don't let my brother see me." They'd been riding motorcycles, and she didn't know that this woman had died. It was the spirit that came to her. So she goes to the scene of the crime, and she sees the woman that's been covered, with a blanket, and obviously doesn't let her brother see her. But just these really simple ones that they don't have any background in the paranormal, and we do so many of these panels, and I often forget that it's really scary, very serious subject matter to a lot of people. They don't know how to respond,
Right.
and what they see is really scary, and because it's television for entertainment purposes only, they're going to always use the scariest thing. That's what people tune in for. These are our modern
Right.
ghost stories. But I try to take something and try to make it as not scary as I can, more educational.
Right.
But regardless, it's going to be the scary thing that tells.
Right. I had a couple episodes, and mine was one that was scary. It was one of the something I never want to go back. I think you were the commentator on it. And then the another one was a resuscitation from somebody whose heart stopped.
Yeah.
And then so that was a feel good around Christmas time. But I do know that when you watch these shows and you think of the magnitude of people that are, especially Paranormal 911, haunted hospitals,
Mhm.
these are places and spaces where people suddenly just go, "Oh my God, I'm not in my body," and they're looking down and they go, "Oh my God, what happened?" And then you almost have to say, "Well, you died," and they're like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
They don't wake up that morning on the way to work and all of a sudden there's a horrible crash or they have a massive heart attack or something happens that was their last day on earth. So you got to think, it's very, sometimes it's a tearjerker of how it affects you. So,
Yeah.
so with the shows and how so many of those you work with and people and you get to know, I guess those are kind of a caveat to some of the other really amazing things that you're doing in the paranormal. So let's kind of venture on looking at some other super cool rock star stuff that you're doing out there. I know we mentioned the book, so we can talk about that now if you want to.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of go from there. Let's see this. Oh,
This
yes.
yeah, so this is Selfies from the Underworld, a Native American's record of the supernatural. And this is something I started putting together after my father passed in 2017.
Wow.
And after that, I kind of had to have like a reset, because we were, obviously we get invited a lot of places for paranormal investigations. And sometimes it's, authentic investigation. Sometimes it's just kind of like the ooh, ah, let's see how this light goes off, or let's see what this app does. Let's see who comes through the spirit box. So I really had to do like a reset. Like, what is this? Because my dad started coming through my dream time.
Wow.
So this, it's not like I never took it seriously before, but it just had a totally different meaning after my father passed. And then my mother passed shortly after him. So it was a way to kind of preserve that wisdom too, because it's not just about ghost stories. It's a lot of native wisdom, a lot of what comes through like dream time, synchronicity, that spiritual path that's so interwoven with what all we do in the field. And like, especially during the pandemic, we lost a lot of elders. I know it hit the Dene really hard, COVID. So it was a way to kind of preserve that wisdom and also keep myself sane. Because, I had to keep working and being out in the field and doing all these things with kind of happy face, where on the inside, I'm just like, he was such a strong figure, in our tribe. Like, everybody went to my father when they needed like help with, he just like before MapQuest. I mean, he knew where everything was. Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah. But, also where we started was before he moved us off the reservation, it was, regardless of what the physical world says is or is not possible, it's spirit that has the governing authority. So anything can happen. So I grew up watching In Search of with him. And, because we love Leonard Nimoy. Star Trek was always on in the background. My dad identified with Spock. And actually yesterday for Father's Day, I was at a buffet and I tripped over something and it was a Spock action figure. Of all things.
What?
So I would watch these shows about like, spirits and Bigfoot and lost civilizations and UFOs. And, regardless of what these pictures, did, maybe some of these were debunked over time, that didn't matter, because if it weren't for those things, I wouldn't be here. And my father, I remember at the end of a lot of these episodes, I'd ask him, did that really happen? And he's like, well, a lot of people believe it did, but he never took away that wonder. He never said it was swamp gas or the planet Venus, or, he kept that wonder intact. So I always believed that anything was possible. My tribe believed anything was. It actually wasn't a word for impossible. It was more like improbable. But, when you have interaction with that realm, your laws of what this physical world, what it's capable of, can be broken, can be broken when you're in need of like a healing, when you need certain medicine in your tribe. Medicine meaning like, we believe like in animal totems. One of like my Indian name is Matochante, so obviously I have bear medicine, qualities of these animals, like bat medicine. Like I'm in my bat room right now, surrounded with Batman paraphernalia. So I don't know. Ask me another question.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, Wes Wes put it. So Tracy, she does have a question. What Native
I think she came in our chat when you didn't, or when you had already explained this.
So, what specifically was the one you may have talked about a lot in the book? Did you have a one that specifically that you were kind of with the tribe that you talked about more so in the book? Maybe.
Like a story?
It says, yeah. What Native American tribe did you utilize for the book? Was there?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're Oglala Sioux. So I don't know if you've ever seen Dances with Wolves, but most of those Native Americans in that movie were Oglala Sioux. So, Sitting Horse, Crazy Horse, these are all people that have, medicine men and these great warriors in my tribe. So we all have a lot to live up to in our tribe. That's where I come from.
So you brought up something that I would love to get a chance to get your thoughts, because it is the new thing going now. Okay. There's been a lot of talk over the years, obviously, about Bigfoot, and they're looking and they're trying and they're this, and so many people are, well, if it existed, well, the beautiful thing about the Native Americans is they're like, look, it's very sacred. The creature is very sacred to us, and it's there's a trust where it, but so the show, Expedition Bigfoot, recently did get some footage, and the
Yeah.
footage is very compelling. I don't know if you saw it, but it was very intriguing. Like, okay, wow. And then they were able to landmark that area, get to it, and then they started the path of some nest and then some hairs.
Mhm.
And so my thoughts in that is, and we could just, I'm so fascinated by it because one of the questions I want to ask is this: the possibilities of that creature actually making itself invisible.
Yeah.
Another, it's been said that is something they can do. People have actually seen the creature, and it's going towards somewhere, and then it just goes whoosh, it's gone. Not in the woods, disappear, but like it's running for, and then it just goes zoom. I mean, that's a question. Could that possibly be a portal? Do these creatures know where they're at? And then they have these little tree, configurations, and they're like, okay, that's it. That's where I go, and this is the way in. So let's visit on some things, Bigfoot, because I know you have some cool knowledge about that for sure.
Yeah, this was either a Sundance ceremony or a powwow. I don't know, several years ago in South Dakota, where a group of boys had actually cornered Sasquatch. Because it's, for us, we've always known of this creature. For us, it was like an underdweller. So sometimes it would get lost and kind of just forage, above the earth, for a while until it found its way back into the underworld. But it was almost like an interdimensional creature. So when you talk about things like this disappearing, there's things these animals have, which is different survival skills. So this might have been a form of like camouflage, but we saw it as more of like a very intelligent, very ancient creatures. But you don't really mix with them, just kind of like spirits, because interaction could be dangerous. There was always the thought that maybe like if one of these creatures took you into this other realm, you wouldn't be able to come back. So we actually had different paths in South Dakota that were marked with like a red, like upside down hand. And that meant that there were creatures there that could be harmful to humans. Like maybe Danae might have called them like skinwalkers. There's like a lot of where there are spiritual portals. And these are like scientifically, they might call these areas where the natural electromagnetic barrier of the earth is in collapse. So it's like a hole in the fence where different beings can come in and out. And Sasquatch, we believed, was one of these things.
Wow. So see, there's been so many people are like, where does he fit in? How is this? What is that he's coming from? And did he, if that's the case, and he's here now, he's like, well, I'm here. I've got to kind of make a spot for myself, but I can go back this way if I need to, peace out, and off I go. They found places to where they've seen tracks, and then they just end.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, he didn't go left, he didn't go right, he didn't go down. They just stopped right there, and then he's gone. So much of the Native Americans and with Bigfoot, so many people Wes talks about it as well, a spiritual creature. There's almost like this very much respect and love from the Native Americans to them, that they don't that supposedly the Bigfoot doesn't really talk. He just looks at you, and then you understand what you're trying to get across to you. And he's like, yes, I understand. Thank you. And people have even said that even at times when he wants to, off he goes, is literally just like cover his face, and then he said he's disappeared in front of their eyes. He just was gone. And I was like, okay, that's super cool. And that could be that's even what they've said, that they feel as if there's times when you get that creepy feeling like something's around me. I can like smell that skunky smell, or I can smell that maybe smell. I don't see him. I feel it like somebody's right there looking at me. And could that possibly be that they've cloaked? They've actually made their self invisible, or
It is, or maybe they found like an opening. We always just call them portals or vortexes, but it might have just been a doorway that opened up to their realm. I've heard stories from an uncle and others where food was left for these Sasquatches, these families, because and more to get to them from stop raiding the tribe of maybe different ceremonial objects. They're almost like not quite like fairies, which sometimes a lot of people laugh at when we talk about fairies in our panels. But in Ireland, where they originated, they were such an integral part of that holiday, and they still build around fairy mounds and stay, keep a very respectful distance from these things. But they were attracted to kind of like shiny things that made noises, like little drums, rattles, like things of that nature. So, sometimes these things might disappear and, appear like in their nests or, wherever they were seen in the wild. But it was just, again, a very respectful relationship, that the tribes had with, these creatures. So.
Well, one of the people we know and love on this show, and both me and Kelly have love and respect for Bob. No doubt, one of the smartest guys out there that is, in fact, that's part of the show, and we love him along with the rest of the folks there, is Bob Burnell. And he asked a question: what frequency do you think these holes in the fence occur at? In other words, maybe what is there some very odd sounding, or is there a certain, you think, a frequency that actually happens when these things possibly open and close?
Well, when I was, after I got my Indian name and went through this kind of training period in my dream time, I was having a lot of, for whatever reason, it's the dreams I have when I'm napping, which are more powerful. I get more messages, more prescient messages.
Wow.
And something kept trying to put me, I thought it was to sleep, but to put me like in that hypnagogic state to where I was kind of like in between worlds. And in that state, I was hearing a lot of like high pitched noises, aware of like different vibrations. But it said in areas where Sasquatch has been reported, they do hear these kind of like high pitched sounds, which they don't know if that's how they communicate with each other, or if this is part of this other realm, this doorway, opening up, these vibrations and these frequencies. So I don't know. I never really speculated on what exact frequency that would be. I'm sure there's more capable hands that are doing that in the field right now, but I do know that is a fact, that is something that's been occurring for hundreds of years. It's just now we're going out with our cameras and we have all these tools, that do things that our medicine men have been able to do for years, which is to peer into these other realms. We have, equipment that can record the voices of people that died, long ago, or cameras that can see into the infrared. And, sometimes there's an over-reliance on these tools. It's, they can do so many things, and yet what are we doing with them? What are we, are we just kind of like sitting, looking at flashlights, turning on and off in the dark? Or are we really, because it might take a lot for like a cryptid or a spirit or whatever it is to come and communicate with us, and obviously rude when you just kind of like leave them hanging on the phone or run off screaming and crying or whatever the case is.
Well, it's interesting, Bob does talk about this frequency. And yes, Wes, I'm going to make my sound because I wanted to share this with Christopher, is that me and John, we were in Gettysburg and we were investigating this area. And we were down in a place that really I only get to go to because it's a friend that I graduated from the National Fire Academy from. So I got to go to this place. And while we were down there, I literally was like, man, it's just vibrant. You could kind of just start to feel it. So that's when I really started taking my 360 photos, not purposeful photos, just taking them. And so we had a program called Phasmobox, which works well. We've got lots of good stuff on. But as I'm doing that, and I get down to where I take this one photo in this straight cutaway in the woods, I hear a sound, and it literally was like something from a warping tunnel sound of like it was crazy. I'll mimic it and I'll see if you can take it. and it was like, oh, you could like, what? I've never had that in all my paranormal investigations from north, south, east, and west into Mexico. Never. But at that same time, I got a photo which I'm going to send to you. I'm going to you and let you see this photo.
I'd love to see it.
I've had some people that are pretty much photo kind of experts in the field, and I sent it, and then I said, I'm going to send you back something and see if that's what you think it is. And they were like, yes, that's that. I didn't put it in their head. And then I said, is this what you think you saw? And they're like, yes, that's it. And they explained it to me of why that photo happened. It's a busy paranormal photo, but I'm going to send it to you. So you can kind of get an idea about that. But it's so crazy because it gets back to how it tied in at the moment that I think, and I'll show you, I think from the photo shows as well, that for those 5 seconds, something tended to maybe warp open and it was there. And then the next photos, it wasn't there. It was as if nothing happened. Before photo and nothing. And I was like, you tell me. And I was just blessed to get there to be at a point when I got that photo and that portal opening. The word is, and I talked to some people from NASA and they talk about it in space and everything else I live close to here in Houston, that portals actually open numerous times a day.
Oh yeah.
Between
all over
locations everywhere. Yeah. So it's a portal. Well, yeah, it happens when you're not even there that it happens. So Tracy's got a very cool question for us. What region do you feel that they are more prevalent? I've heard the Appalachians and Washington State area. In other words, probably Bigfoots.
Yeah, a lot of sightings there. I mean, even where I live here in Colorado, there's a mountain known as Pikes Peak, where the song "America Beautiful" came from. And there's a lot of mountains here, but that one just has a lot of like mystical properties, like UFO sightings, Sasquatch sightings. But anywhere where there's a lot of electromagnetic energy, like a lot of kind of like earth energy, like in England, you think of, these places where they had all these like mounds and these sacred concentration of stones. Like the Jedi in Star Wars, they talk about areas that are rich with like light and dark sides of the Force. That's actually a reality. Or like in light sides, you might have an overabundance of this energy where people can go and meditate. And like one of these places would be, for instance, like Bell Rock, or places in Sedona, Arizona, where people go to for visions and just more clarity of mind. So in those areas, those are definitely where you would expect to see otherworldly beings. I don't know, I guess we call Bigfoot like Sasquatch like otherworldly because it is part of that realm, but it's also physical. It's in our physical space. It holds that space.
Well, your buddy Wes has got something out there. He's got posed a nice little question. How can we apply scientific equipment to the spirit world? We depend too much these days on physical equipment when we should be spending more time opening our minds up to the spiritual world. Yeah,
that's such a great question because, a lot of the investigations we go on, they're exclusive, but some of them are public ones, just so we can get an idea of what people are doing, what kind of like new tools are on the market now. I did one maybe 3 weeks ago where every other room was a spirit box. And I start to think, is this all investigating is about now? Just the spirit boxes, just people sit in the box that blinks or makes noise, or, we're allowing these things. And certainly these things, there's a purpose, and I'm not putting down tools in any way. It's just, I think sometimes people come into these spaces and they're like on an app with like a cell phone, and they're so engaged in this thing, they don't see what's going on or feel what's going on around us. A lot of times when I dreamt, it's I didn't have an answer. I was like, this is supposed to be this vision or this clue, and yet I don't know what it's trying to say. And my grandfather was like, it's more about what you feel. There's like, we're all visited nightly by dream spirits, but they speak another
Right.
language, which is a symbolic language. So a lot of times we misunderstand what that message is. And in paranormal investigations, we're more old school. We've got ovulas, spirit box, all the bells and whistles. But we went to New Orleans last year, and I stayed in the French Quarter, and we were just right around the corner from their voodoo museum. And I bought a kashishi, which is a rattle that they use in voodoo ceremonies to call spirits in. I spoke to one of their priests, make sure I was using it the right way for the right intention. So that's a tool that we can use now when we go out on these investigations. It's just something that puts us more in touch with not just like the history, but also the environment. That's it's like a pentagram. North, east, south, west. The different elements, but also like spirit. Is just an element that is often overlooked. That unseen element. So sometimes the tools, we just try to make sure that we're not being too over reliant on those things, even if it is a rattle or something like that. It's really setting your attention. And a lot of times before we go on an investigation, there's just like a meditation we have to do beforehand. What are we expecting? What do we want to bring to the table? People talk about phantoms. Well, what is a phantom? How is a phantom different from a ghost or a spirit? So maybe tonight we want to focus on calling a phantom into the fold and see what's happening.
Wow, Tracy's got another great question. Is there a Native American prayer that calls to Bigfoot to appear or speaks of Bigfoot? That's a very cool question.
Not like a prayer that I'm aware of. I know there's songs. There's like different songs of the Sioux that my grandfather and like uncles would tell me about. But again, it's as far as like prayer. Again, that was just something you didn't really pursue. That's something you didn't play with, or we're so used to now, like with these tools and these ghost hunting apps, just this Victorian novelty where we get like a little shock or a jolt, and it kind of increases our, like just like us thrill seekers. That's fun. That feels good for everybody. But that's just, again, that's something we don't play around with that realm. Especially if we don't have like a background or like an elder we can go to for help and guidance. What happens if we do see a Sasquatch? What do we do? And are we armed? Are we going to harm this thing? Like one of the first times I ever saw a full-bodied apparition, my first thought was to go and swat at it. It's just my instincts, my flight or fight. And I didn't mean to do that because it wasn't doing anything harmful. It just came back with us during a ghost hunt. And I felt so bad about it afterwards because I'm sure that spirit had a message for me. And yet I was just on instinct. I just kind of get out of here, and it left and it never came back. So it's just something that has to be a very conscious communing, because it is a form of divine, which again could be harmful if you don't know what you're doing.
It's funny you should say that. You talk about the apparition. So me and Kelly were at a location for an investigation, and for the first time ever, two things happened, and it really added to the paranormal timeline. But I got cussed at by a spirit. I mean, clearly a mad female spirit that I had got to talk to, and was like, she was very kind, and we were talking and just back and forth. And boy, it wasn't long after that when I brought a friend in the room to introduce. I got the F-bomb, and whoa, wait, stop! What? I'm sorry. And I asked like one more question, like, "Is this your room?" And she was like, "Maybe." And then she was gone. She's like, "But later that night, I had another event happen. I know it happened because when I woke up to do it, I was halfway to the bed, and the rest of my body, I got pulled from my feet down out of the bed because I was halfway like this, and I was like, "Whoa, what the?" And right before that happened, though, something over on the wall was kind of click, kind of fell, and then I got yanked. Wow. So it really went. And then we found out later she had locked some doors in this house, and she was mad. She's like, you know what? Get out. This is my space. I run this. You guys got to go. Wes was there. Yeah, it was a very, very cool investigation. We're gonna go back, but I will tell you one. You mentioned one place I want to go with you. Like I want to go, New Orleans. I will tell you, New Orleans to me is one of the most haunted cities in the entire United States.
I would agree with that.
Me and John, we went and we were up in the hotel room, and I had my first ever shadow figure that came from out of the bathroom and went out, getting its way out. Of course, I yelled at John, "Did you see that?" And he didn't see it, but it's full of. And even when I did a little EVP session, sadly, I'm like, I'm here, I'm Keith. I just want to get some, I want to get a chance to talk to you. And what happened? Can you tell me a little bit about it? And you heard these very sad responses. I drowned.
Oh my
Of
gosh.
course, we know about the storms and that. And,
Yes.
And sadly, you have to think that these living people, when it came through, it was like too late, and they're trying to crawl on their roofs and they can't.
Yeah.
And then so many people just died by the hundreds. And wow. And you think about that energy, and then just that city is like full.
I think it's so refreshing too to hear the take from your culture on all of this, and that Wes is weighing in with me about how, because he knows what I think and believe about these sorts of things. And I think it's so amazing. I wish that those lessons would be extended to build that sensitivity in our culture, because I think it's beautiful, and I think it would validate so many people's experiences. I just think it's amazing. I do have a couple questions I'm getting off of our chat sent in private message. So one of the questions is, what do you think about the happenings at Skinwalker Ranch, and have you been there?
Well, we have a similar place here in Colorado where similar things happened. And again, it's a place where that electromagnetic barrier of the earth is just in collapse. And this happens naturally, like all around the earth. But again, that little hole in the fence where things can come and go. But Skinwalker Ranch, this was maybe 15 years ago, where that book Hunt for the Skinwalker came out. That was the first time I'd heard of that place in Utah. And that was one of the scariest books I had ever read. I loved what they had to say, like about the Utes and like different cultures that knew about this creature, and how it was like in direct, almost like a ley line, a place of earth energy where it's very focused. So you have a lot of activity up and down because of all that electromagnetic energy. But I do want to go. I mean, I would love to be able to get on this ranch and just see what that element, what my spirit would do, how those things would react with me. You were talking about New Orleans, and one of my favorite things about being there was that everyone had a ghost story. They were so proud of these buildings and of their history. You could go up to anybody. It's like, is this place haunted? And, usually it was. And they had a story to tell about it. So that was one of my favorite things. But, as far as this ranch, it's just, I know with Danae, they prefer not to talk about skinwalkers or even utter the name, because to speak it is to call it. And even when I was a kid, that's when I knew that was the best time to get around under that kitchen table, when they started talking these hushed tones, because I know they're talking about ghosts and our tribe that died, because you're supposed to whisper. And especially like after dark, you really have to be quiet, because it's just like you're calling them back, so, and you don't want to confuse them either, So.
Sure.
Well,
the other question I got about off of our chat is about your experiences with, as you put it, the star people or UFOs over the area where you live. Do you have any experiences like that?
Oh, definitely. My uncle, and he wouldn't mind me saying this, but he had seen lights on one of his patrols on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And he had been approached afterwards. He took pictures and was approached by some kind of government military people. And those pictures were never returned. All of those. So they just reporting those things because they actually happen with much more frequency than you would think. But early on, I was having a series of, I thought it was coming from my dream time, because I kept waking up with my feet hanging off the side of the bed. But at the same time, I was dreaming of UFOs and using this kind of like symbolic dream language of these dream spirits. I thought the UFOs meant that they were God, some form of the creator. And I was afraid of that. So every time I saw these UFOs, I would run into the basement. I would hide from them. And someone's like, well, why don't you just stay there, find out if this UFO is symbolic for God, what this is, what the message is. So I remember doing this, and it was like the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life, even though it was part of my dream life, was to sit still when this UFO landed and approach the craft. This door opens up, and there's no one inside. It's more of like a probe, but there's a chair in there. I know I'm supposed to sit in there. So I sit in this chair, and these tubes come out from this machine. This looks like this old like radio, like from the 30s or something. And on the front are different words which say things like compassion and bravery and honesty and devotion. And I can see, based on where the needle is, how much of these things I've been excelling at in my own life. So obviously compassion was really huge on my gauge because, that's part of why I got the name Bear Heart. I had such a big heart in my family. A lot of people came to me for advice and consolation, those kinds of things. So with me, again, UFOs, that spiritual aspect that you have to acknowledge. But we've seen UFOs. We go to a place where there are a lot of UFOs, which is the San Luis Valley here in Colorado. And again, another place where there's a lot of electromagnetic energy, where they see different strange birds and insects that they can't identify, which are coming through this little hole in the fence. But star people, we have a very long history with star people, and a lot of our petroglyphs attest to our relationship with these beings, which weren't necessarily from other planets. They might be from other dimensions, other planes of existence that come through this, these portals. But also, like someone had told me once, when you see a craft, what you think is a craft, a light in the sky, binary star system, that this is actually an opening between worlds. So I really like in Skinwalker Ranch what they're doing, the different ways they're utilizing these tools, the different kind of like out of the box thinking that they're doing in order to establish communication with beings that sometimes don't want to be identified. They kind of have this like first contact procedure in place too, like what is it in Star Trek, this prime directive, where they're not allowed to influence our free will. If we're ready to have a path collectively, which is going to include military disclosure, we all have to be ready for that. And where you have a tribe of people, it takes a while for that knowledge to pass through the entire tribe and to make sure it's for the highest good of all concerned. So I think this is a very exciting time where we're going to learn more and see more about Sasquatch, Loch Ness Monster, where there was more photos of this, what I believe is a plesiosaur that were taken, these UAPs, what they call them now, these unidentified lights in the sky. It's all coming to a head. So this is a very exciting time where you really have to pay attention to your dream messages, synchronicities, those chance happenings in your life, and follow them, because that's a part of opening up that door and opening up your mind.
So I got a very cool question from one of my best buds, Gary Woodward, and it's something I'm really big into now. As folks know me in tech, I'm like, buy one. The question is your stance and theory about implementing LiDAR to detect or scan for unidentified anomalies, aliens. Have you seen much about the LiDAR or how they're able to go in and basically just do these 3D mapping of something, of an area, and how intense it is? They can go in. They even went back to where the famous, Gimlin film of Patty, and they went back and showed where she was, and then they got down to about a height that she was like 6'3", and they had it was amazing. What's your thoughts about that, as far as it maybe being implemented or into the world of what we see in the paranormal or so forth?
I think it's incredible. I am just so excited, and not just where it relates to the paranormal and Skinwalker Ranch, but also these lost temples and places in like South America, that they're discovering underneath the vegetation, So again, we're just living in a very exciting time where everything is coming to a head. And, I always talk about over-reliance on tools, but tools are there for a reason, as long as our intention is pure.
Correct. I agree.
Yeah, again, like before we go on investigations, it's just that meditation about what our intention is. If we're going to use a tool, what are we using it for, and what do we expect to get from that tool?
So I got another one I want to ask about, and this is one that is that rare thing in the cryptid world, Mothman. What's your thoughts on all things Mothman? It's so intriguing, and yet it's so deep and dark. There's something that just gets hidden about it. What's your thoughts or your experiences with it?
Yeah, that was one of the first paranormal books I ever read cover to cover when I was younger, The Mothman Chronicles by John Keel. And I was so fascinated with this creature because we'd not seen the Mothman like in our tribe that I know of, but we'd seen thunderbirds and other winged creatures, even like pterodactyls, that were supposed to have been extinct. But reading about John going to West Virginia to investigate a lot of, this, and not just the Mothman, but they're having a lot of other experiences too that were maybe tied into this entity.
Right.
But also this, where he gets out of his car and he feels such intense fear he can barely move. So, and then he's able to actually step out of this, what he called a zone of fear. So is this like a signal? Maybe the government or someone was broadcasting? Were they doing different experiments with people's reaction to the unexplained? Maybe for, the purposes of maybe disclosing something at a later time. Because a lot of times things that happened in my childhood, for instance, one time I was walking to school and I saw a dragonfly that was about as big as my forearm, and it was just kind of frozen. And I knew that there was insects didn't get that big, like dragonflies anyway. And it was huge. I mean, it was just really like the thickness of my arm. Or times where we saw doppelgangers like in our house. And there was one time actually where it was during the summertime and I'm sitting in this living room with my cousins and we're hearing this beating on the screen door. And we look and it's this moth that's about like this giant. And it's got these really bright red eyes and it's just clinging to the screen. And we're screaming in terror. And our uncle has to go out and actually pull at the wings of this giant moth to get it off the screen door. Wow. But we don't have any moths that big in Colorado. But it was just one of those things that was, with a lot of these experiences, it was almost like something was gauging our reaction to them. What did we do in these situations? Obviously, fear can contaminate experience so greatly. So it's really putting that fear in place and being able to look at things with more, just with incorporating more practical elements.
Gary's got another really cool one out there. What do you think or suspect is either haunting or possessing the Hoya Forest in Romania? I'm very intrigued about this location. I want to visit the forest. Do you know about that little diamond in the woods?
I do. I just love the folklore out there, like Romania. And, the first time, obviously, I ever heard about Romania was because of, Vlad and Dracula and all those legends. And that was another great thing about going to New Orleans because I thought their vampire legends were just going to be more like cheesy Twilight, glow-in-the-dark vampires or, the more like the romantic, Anne Rice, God bless her. I didn't know what to expect. I thought I would run into like a lot of goth people that brought that vampire energy because we believed, again, vampires are real. They're very real spirit beings, that sometimes can, like a Sasquatch, exist in our physical world. So when I started finding out about, which they weren't even really called vampires, they called themselves immortals. And when I started really doing research down the street, we were staying at a place where Saint Germain had lived, who was an immortal. And all around this area, like across the street, there was the Boutique du Vampire and the Vampire Cafe. And a lot of vampires were congregating around this area. So I spent the weekend in the middle of the night just kind of looking around for these beings. We didn't see anything. Basically, from 5:30 onward on Bourbon Street, it's all bass and people twerking against anything that was signal. God bless. It was so much fun. It was so great to see people enjoying themselves. And fortunately, that time we didn't run into any vampires. But I think that's just that part of Romania. That lore. Again, just that coexisting with a number of different life forms. That we don't quite understand, but just give a very wide berth to.
The week before I got to New Orleans, there was a sighting of a vampire, and the reason why is somebody that we had went and got to meet there actually said that it was 3 girls and one was lagging behind on her phone, and this man taps her on the shoulder. He's dressed in black, and now think that there was 2 girls ahead of her, and then this person just appeared like right on the sidewalk. And he's like, hello, and he just introduced himself. And he's like, I would love for you and your friends to come with me. And she was looking, she's like, I don't even know you, but you should really come. It would be very nice. And then she walked a little forward. She looked at him, looked to her friends and said, hey, do you want to? Next thing you know, she turned right around. He was gone.
Yeah.
So apparently he was just really kind of trying to lure her or say, come with me. We should. Yeah. I'll show you. And then, boy, when it's going to get exposed or too much, he was gone.
Yeah, I didn't know how
she explained it to be that it was like he was looked like he was dead, and like his eyes were just, and then his skin was really pale, and he just looked kind of spooky. Yeah. And then there you go.
Well, I mean, we believed in entities that could drain the life force from the living. So obviously that's a form of vampire, but also, these beings that are immortal. I didn't know how I was really going to feel about it until we got there, and I really started connecting with an actual voodoo priest, an actual person that lived in this location where there were vampire sightings. It was just fascinating, in one of the stories, because we stayed even half a block from the St. Louis Cathedral, which was saw a lot of public executions. And one of the executions that happened there were these brothers that were getting in trouble. This is way maybe in the 1800s. And they were just the bad seed of this, this neighborhood. But this woman had escaped from their house. What they were doing was they were rounding people up, and they were tying them up, and they were slitting their wrists and drinking from their blood. And they would leave. They would sleep during the day, come back at night. And they believed that they were vampires. So they caught them, they put them to death, and then a week later, they saw them both partying at a tavern up the street from where we were staying. So just these kinds of legends that people were so willing to talk about and go on record about. And a lot of these included authorities. There were their actual public records of these things happening. People that brought, for some reason, there's a lot of vampires in Paris, but people that traveled from Paris bringing what they thought were big giant suitcases, but they were actually coffins that they slept inside, during the day.
Speaking of Paris, Gary Woodward has a question.
Okay.
The Paris catacombs, so much unknown history, police protected and not fully explored yet. Have you ever researched or visited the Paris catacombs?
Yeah, I've got books on the Paris catacombs. I've got videos. If we ever go out there, I'm definitely going to hook up with someone who can get us in there. I know where there's actually one entrance that it's easy to kind of get in there, but I don't know if any of you ever saw that video that someone captured down there. That was it was almost a found footage thing. It was in the early 90s, but someone had recording themselves going into the catacombs alone, and then getting lost, and then something is chasing them, and then they drop the camcorder. Well, some spelunkers afterwards found that camcorder and tried to retrace their steps, and found this area that's got so many bones that you can't even see down to where the opening is, the bottom is. And they believe that the gate, one of the gateways to the underworld is down there. So it's just a fascinating place that is definitely on my bucket list.
I'm really filling the bucket list with you. Can we say Paris?
Yes.
Paris 2023. I could say one thing to John about Paris. He's like, yep, we can go.
While you're explaining about your bucket list, do you have any upcoming projects that you want to share with everybody in our last few minutes?
Spill it, Christopher.
So I'm doing a series of videos called I Dare You. That's going to be coming out, which is helping investigators focus more on a location. And because a lot of times people go into an investigation and they've got all these tools thrown at them and they don't really know what to do, or maybe the location is really overwhelming. So it's a way to put them in the dark alone. And it's also a way to kind of gauge where they're at with their own fear. But I'm working on my next book too, which is called Dreamtime Architecture Adventures in the Astral Realm. But I'm still promoting this one. So again, a Native American's Record of the Supernatural, which that first edition that went out, it was so embarrassing because I used a proofreading program, which took all these Native American words I had put in there and auto-corrected them. So I had to go page by page by page, all of these things. But I'm just happy it's out into the world now, making its mark, and hopefully everyone enjoys it. Leaves a review.
Oh, fantastic! So get it off Amazon, then?
Amazon?
Yeah, both physical and Kindle versions.
Well, I seriously want to pick. I'm looking. I really think I want to get one autograph, though. I think I want to find out what I need to do because I listen, folks. This show alone, if you did not sit there in awe over, we just kind of touched the cusp of just a little bit of Christopher Allen Brewer. I am quite sure we could sit here, and as you can tell, the questions are still coming in.
We're gonna have to have you back on.
I love it with the book
of your energy, Keith. Thank you so much.
Well, I say the same things with Wes. For somebody I haven't been out there and just totally embraced and met, and you're just a very kind soul. You feel that, but just in awe of the knowledge and the things. So I don't know where you're going to be next. It's some event, some Paracon, some cafe. I don't care. Me and John are flying. We're going.
He's going to be the creeper.
No. I'm talking. I'm like, I'm a big fan. Absolutely. Right now. I love the guy. It's so much beauty and things he does. So, folks,
And can everyone find you online, Christopher? Is that where you would like people to be able to follow you and things?
Like a lot of the spirit photography I've gained over the years, you can go to thespiritchasers.com. That's my official website. So that's got all of our upcoming events, things that we're involved with, videos, different projects we're doing.
Awesome. I'm putting that in the chat so that everyone can find them.
Yes, we will do that. You got that. Kelly's got that and got the other. Well, if you'll take a second in our beautiful green room, there should be a nice cold drink and some little caviar for you to hang out.
For you, yeah.
And then we'll close out, and then we'll visit with you just after the show.
Well, thank you for watching, everyone. I really appreciate you tuning in. Blessings to everyone.
Oh, still getting people coming in. We love Chris. Sure. We love Chris.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll be with you in just a moment. Okay.
Thanks.
So much fun. I swear I have so many things now. I mean, I have follow-up questions. He's going to have to come back on. That's all there is to that.
Well, Gary, you talk about, listen, listen, me too. I told people, I told you, share this show. This guy is you get to be a subject matter expert for the paranormal, and you're literally sitting there. That says a lot. You don't just get to trip on a biscuit and have that for breakfast. That there comes with knowledge, and he's actually boom. You ask it, boom, 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 just like that, folks. I've said it before. I say it again. There's a couple people, himself and some others but what a great guest. I loved it. Loved the show and loved it. Everything else. You do know, folks, that coming up here in October, what is happening in October, Kelly?
Oh my gosh, we're headed back to the Warrens Paracon. I'm so excited. And I just put in the chat, everybody, if you didn't see, because Keith's not mad at me anymore for hijacking our channel to post the upcoming Extreme Viewer Experiences Part 2 episode that we'd like to have a lot of people come on and share your experiences. We just ask that it's either something you've personally experienced or you've been along during the experience. but you can share audio, video, come on and tell your story, all in anticipation of the Warrens Secrets of the Supernatural Paracon in October. So that is in 2 weeks. So if you're interested in joining us on the show to tell your cameo story, make sure that you send us a message either on Facebook or Instagram or by email so we can get you on, because we
know
love
there's
stories.
There's some already we know, like for sure, Robin, Gary, dude, I know you've got stuff. I know you do. So jump in, get with us, because you've got some really cool stuff as well. Innies and others out there that have it. That's why we said this show's about. That's what we told you. So we're reaching out. We're like, hello, now it's jump in and share your stuff. Be amazing. Let others see, your stuff. So
we're going to build that anticipation, because we will have nothing but experiences to share around Halloween time when we're at that Paracon. So
let's make it a rock star show too. Like I said, I want to make it to where everybody has fun. They get their time, they tell their stuff. And that's what, that's why me and Kelly love doing what we do, because to get to hear others, man, that's amazing, Robin. Oh my God. Or Gary, God, it's some of the most crazy footage I've ever seen. That's what we're doing. So know that.
Yeah.
We mean it.
And that's in 2 weeks. So send us a message so you can join us on here.
2 weeks.
Yeah. And we'll be back in 2 weeks, everybody. Have a very beautiful night. And thank you for joining us. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Love you.